I've been monitoring the questions a bit, but I think because you've been both so incredibly explained everything so well, there's not actually that many questions, are there, Suzanne? I think a couple came through on the chat as well as on the questions. I think the first one to you, Richard, was about soils, I think it was. Or did you answer that one already?
No, I haven't actually answered that one.
Sorry, I'll just find the question because...
might the lack of native plant recruitment after vertebrate pest control in sclerophyll veg community be related to whether the soils are original or not? Yeah.
And the next question after that, if you want to just follow on, would be off-target attrition with the mouse off.
Yeah, sure. So I'm only talking about the first question. Natural soils, the sites have natural soils. We haven't done enough active research to know whether or not we're getting the kind of recruitment that we want to get. We certainly get increased recruitment. We just haven't got any statistical analysis. I'm hoping to get a student to perhaps do some research with trials before and after doing baiting. Particularly mice and slugs is my main interest, because we've got the rabbits under control in these sites. It's the mice and slugs.
Liz has also asked about off-target damage with the slug off to other animals as well. So
yeah, slug off's pretty good. It doesn't.
Metaldehyde is your basic snail bait. You got to make sure you keep away from dogs, obviously, isn't it? So it's dangerous that way.
Yeah, so slug off, because of the way it's designed, as long as you're putting it out at the rates that are specified on label, it's been really effective. The slugs actually eat it so quickly, it doesn't remain available. But Linton's done much more study on this, so I'll let Linton answer slug off target damage. Linton, you need to unmute.
Oh, you're on mute, Linton. Still on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to leave and rejoin. For some reason, my internet's dropping out. I didn't hear a whole question, but I sense it's about slug-based control and non-target impact. I'm actually not aware of any non-target impact. I'm interested to know if I think someone asked a question before of Richard about slaters. And there's a vineyard in South Australia that's got a slater problem as well as a snail problem.
Millipedes. Millipedes was the question.
Millipedes, was it? Yeah. I don't know even if it'll kill them. Probably not. But we're maybe hoping that something might get collateral. But really, it's very targeted to slugs and snails. And Richard, you were quite right when you said and drew attention. In fact, you're the first person I've ever seen draw attention to the biological impact of slugs, and I've got them on my own little hobby farm, and they destroy my clover and all my new pasture. I resow a paddock and it's just wiped out by slugs. So I've actually just spent last weekend spreading slug off out there. I had to buy one of those little red spreaders that you talked about, and I'm out there bumping along the paddock, spreading it out as fast as I can go. I get the sweepings of the spilt product off the floor from the factory, and that's our disposal route at the moment. But yeah, we've got a big slug problem, and you're quite right, it's underestimated. And we had a very big success in Pyramira wineries in McLaren Vale a couple of months ago. They saw a land care program about us and contacted the company of the salespeople and bought a bulker bag. It's a half-ton lot of slug bait. They put out 200 kilograms, and in one night they estimated they killed 1 million snails. 1 million snails. In fact, he said I was going to harvest more snails than grapes that year, and he had used some other leading products for the 3 previous years without success. So we've made a bit of a song and dance about that success story. Very pleased.
And I think I might not have heard the answer before, Richard. Diana's asked about whether with the mouse off or those sort of rodenticides, whether there's what off-target effect there might be on native mammals like bush rats and antechinus.
And so, look, I did partly touch on that. The thing about using any of these products, if you use, like, you only use it because you've got sufficient biomass of animals present, so target animals, so mice present, that it warrants using the bait. And you put the bait out at such low densities that, and we actually put it out when we're doing mouse baiting at the end of the day, so just before nightfall. And often the last passes, it's actually getting dark when we're putting it out. There is no bait left within a matter of an hour or two. The mice have eaten it all. You just can't beat the mice to it. They're just so effective. And most of the animal, I mean, I worry about things like bush rats and swamp rats, but I'm not likely to use it in an area that's got numbers of bush rats or swamp rats. It's really, I'm really using it in grasslands, and it's just so amazing. You've only got a few grains per square meter. How many grains? Oh, we've lost Linton. Dan was going to ask him a question. I think it's like 3 or 4 grains, and and it's all gone. The mice eat it all, so it's just not available for other animals to eat.
Yeah, poor old Linton's got a bad internet connection wherever he is in Melbourne. So
he's not in Melbourne. He's out on his farm.
No, he said he came back to Melbourne just so he would have a good connection.
Yeah.
But
it is a farm though. It's a small farm on the outskirts.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we might not get Linton back, but I'm hoping we will. Everyone's held on very well. There you're back, Linton. I see. I'll take the opportunity while I've actually got you there to thank you. We can keep going, but that was very, a great talk. It was not a very cheery overview of all the pestilence and stuff that pigs can spread around, Ebola and other things like that. And but it was very interesting seeing what they're doing in America, and I couldn't resist looking at Mike Bodenchuk when you were talking about him, and he looks every bit like a Mike Bodenchuk, the pig shooter over there. But yeah, great overview of pigs and the risks and the innovations that there are. So we'd really like to thank you for taking your time, and you too, Richard, for taking your time out this evening. And we went a fair bit over time, that must be said, but the numbers have held on very well. We've hardly lost many participants, which shows how interested everybody really was. And I think our participants here come from a wide range of land management areas. And it's a credit to you both to have held everyone's attention for so long. So thank you very much.
A pleasure. I'm sorry my internet kept dropping out. I think it was the extension I was using in my house.
Yeah, right. There's a question here about what's the best way to store HOGGONE. There's a anecdotal here that they found the membrane expanded after a day or so, but was okay to put out.
We shouldn't expand after a day or so. It takes about 6 months, but inevitably the nitrite is able to sequester moisture from the atmosphere no matter what we do, and once it gets some moisture vapor, it will start to degrade, and you've still got plenty of nitrite in the bait to kill the pig. But if the pig doesn't find the bait palatable anymore, you will lose effectiveness. We think that's occurring over about 6 to 12 months. We've had 100% success with 10-month-old bait that's been stored in a tin shed in Texas in hot conditions, but we're nervous about it. So we're now recommending to keep it in cool conditions, not refrigerated, but maybe in an air-conditioned storeroom or an office somewhere. It's an S6.
Why not a fridge? Why not a fridge? I mean, a bait fridge, because they're actually got dehumidifiers, so they're around 50% humidity.
Yeah, look,
pretty good environment.
I haven't really done that, but it won't probably do any harm. But if you're doing a big pig program, you need a big fridge. So
true.
Yeah, that's the problem. But a coolish room rather than a tin shed in a paddock is better. And we've stored stuff in our warehouse, and we've noticed that the ones stored in the warehouse in summer conditions of 30, 35, 40 degrees are expanding a little bit earlier, which is a telltale sign, than those that are stored in an air-conditioned chemical store, same batch. So temperature and humidity definitely are factors. And unfortunately, I wish otherwise, it's taken me 12 years to get this product to where it is. And sodium nitrite as a chemical fights me at every step. It's tough.
Okay. And Richard, there was just another question about the risks of raptors eating snails and mice after they've eaten them, after the mice have fed on the
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll actually let Linton answer that.
I don't think it's a problem. The slug off bait's actually a German manufactured product. It's the most widely used slug and snail control in Europe, where slugs and snails are the biggest pest problem. We talk about foxes and everything else. They've got slugs and snails are the #1 agricultural pest in most of Europe: Italy, Switzerland, Germany, France, Scandinavian countries, and the UK. They also use in places like the UK a lot of what we call over here cheap and nasty pellet baits, which are not rain fast. And the problem with those is there's so much metaldehyde being put out because you have to apply those products at a much higher rate, is you end up with contamination of the waterways with metaldehyde, which is a problem in the UK. Not super dangerous, but it's above acceptable levels. But as far as damage to non-targets, I have never heard of any secondary poisoning risk from animals eating the slugs and snails killed with metaldehyde baits, and that applies to everybody's products as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so secondary poisoning's generally not considered an issue. And most animals, they just don't eat these slugs anyway. Most animals have an aversion to eating slugs, which is one of the reasons they can get away with just cruising around. And look, I touched on it with mouse off. There really has been no reports, and given how many tens of thousands of tons are used through broadacre agriculture annually, I don't know how much is used out there, Linton.
In a mouse plague year, it's hundreds of tons at 1 kilogram per hectare. So we're talking of millions of hectares treated. It's a massive problem, but not that doesn't happen every year. It's about once a decade. But over 25 years, a quarter of a century of widespread use in every state, we've had no reports of secondary problems at all. And it's very different from using anticoagulant baits that are long-acting in nature. And people think, oh, it's a rodenticide, therefore it's got the same risks. And I think you covered that pretty well, Richard, actually, when you said it's the only thing that can be used on a broadacre basis. And one of the reasons for that is that it is environmentally extremely safe.
Yeah, and further to that, the mice, you can't find a mouse. They don't die on the surface. It's not like the images of pigs we saw there. The mice actually feel sick and hide. They go away.
Right. And it's Big Brother rat off, which we used in the cane industry. One of the telltale signs is you walk into a cane crop and you could smell all the rat holes stinking of dead rat degrading, but there were no dead rats on the surface. And the zinc phosphide itself degrades very quickly in the acids of the stomach, which you actually mentioned as well. Thank you. So you've got a lot of things very right there, Richard. Well done.
Glad to hear it.
And I want to assure your audience, Patrick, that there's no collusion here whatsoever. No. I had no idea what.
I like your products. I like your products. So
so thanks very much. I think we better wrap it up. It's we've gone an hour over now, and just a reminder to people that on the link that we sent out, there's a link to a bit more information on HOGGONE and Dr. Staples on a landline episode, which is very interesting. So if you want to refresh yourself, and thanks very much. Our meeting, the Chemicals and the Management of Biodiversity Group, meets every third Wednesday of every month. We've been mainly focused on herbicides and impacts on reductions in herbicide and alternatives to herbicides, all of which those past seminars are available online, but we are trying to expand it a bit so that this is the first talk where we've spoken outside the herbicide or the chemicals, the phytochemicals, I suppose, to look at the bigger risk, the other part of the big risk to biodiversity, which is pest animal control. So, you can email admin@AABR. And once again, thanks very much for joining, and feel free to join. The memberships are quite cheap, and for both individuals and members, and we can really use your support, especially for those of you who have joined in here, and hopefully appreciate it. So we'll bring this meeting to a close. Thanks to Suzanne, who's been in the background there, managing it and getting it all organised and doing the administration. So thanks very much to everybody, and good night.